Hi, and welcome to A Day in the Garden with Christina Linder. I'm a lifelong avid gardener, and today I'm here at a client's house, and we're going to refresh this planter from last year. So the soil in here is really dry, and that's on purpose because once this is planted, we're going to have to move this container, and by adding water before we plant, it's going to add a lot of weight to this already heavy bowl. So in order to amend this soil, I'm going to add a few different things. I have here something called sea soil, and it has a lot of nutrients in it. This happens to be an organic product, which in this particular case doesn't necessarily make a big difference because this is an ornamental planter with just annuals in it, nothing that we're going to eat. But it adds a lot of water retaining abilities to the soil, and it does add all kinds of compost qualities. So we're going to open up the bag carefully so we don't spill it all over the place. And we're going to dump in just a fairly small amount. You can tell this is really good stuff. It's really heavy. And then we're going to mix this in. And of course the roots of the plants are they're going to try to go down into the soil. So we don't want all the stuff just on top. We want to mix it in really well. If you want to wear gloves, you should. Personally, I like to feel the soil, and I hardly ever wear gloves. It's like mixing a big dough. So there we go. And we've also added a little bit of volume now. Another thing I'm going to add is a slow release pellet fertilizer. Now, we will talk more about fertilizers in a later episode, but what I'm using here is actually a starter fertilizer. And it has a very high first and middle number, which is going to promote root growth as well as green growth and flowers. So we're going to put that in. The bag will always give you directions for how much. So if you have a look in the back of the bag, it'll give you all kinds of information. This is actually a fertilizer that you could also use on things like a freshly started lawn and all kinds of other things. So we're going to work this in. This fertilizer is going to release nutrition for usually about 3 to 4 months. And we're not going to mix that into the bottom because later when we water, that water will carry the nutrition into the lower part of the bowl. So this way, the roots, as they grow down into the soil, are going to be able to avail themselves of this nutrition. So there we go. Okay, I think we're ready to plant. And because this is a container that's going to go into a shady spot, the plant material that I've chosen for this is all stuff that's going to do well in shade. So maybe I can angle it like this. We're going to start with something tall and impressive in the middle. And for that, I've chosen a coleus. Now, coleus comes in many different varieties, and it's one of my favorite choice, both for shade and sun. Traditionally, coleus used to be known as a shade plant, but nowadays there are varieties that will also take sun. So in this case, this particular variety will be fine both in sun and shade. Another plant that's going to add a little height is a Bolivian begonia. And you can see how it's got these little teardrop orange flowers. It's going to be quite tall. Let's just see the tag here. You can always get information on the tags. It will do fine in bright locations, but to avoid direct hot sun, which is perfect in this case. And it's going to be quite cascading. I would say that the height of this is going to be 12 to 14 inches, maybe a little bit more. Another plant that's going to be a little bit taller is this gorgeous calceolaria, and it's also known as a lady's purse, and it's not blooming yet, but you can see how there's buds on there. This is going to have yellow flowers. So you can see that the color combination I'm going for here is sort of within the pinks and oranges and yellow / chartreuse. I also have actually a couple of different kinds of impatiens. This one is called Rockapolco, and it is orange. It's going to be orange. And what else do we have in here? We have a trailing Lismachia. And this lime green color is very useful in all kinds of planters. It adds so much brightness, and as that plant grows bigger, it's going to start spilling over the edges, which is very attractive. I also have some regular pink impatiens, and I love this combination of pinks and oranges. I also have a traditional begonia here. I actually have 2 of that in a sort of tomato red tone. As well, we have Torrenia, and this is a little flower that's going to trail also, and the blossoms are kind of pinky purple. They're very pretty as they get bigger and start trailing. A lot of this plant material doesn't look like much when you go to plant it. So when you go shopping for plant material, it's important that you look beyond the lack of buds and the small size, and make sure that you read the cards that are in most things. And on the back of the cards, you'll find information such as size and what kind of conditions the plant needs, all those kinds of different things. This little fellow, for instance, is it's called a hippo rose. That's of course not the proper name, but that's what they call it, and it's going to be 16 to 22 inches, so that's almost 2 feet tall. So it really doesn't look like much now, but 2 feet is approximately that much. So that is if you don't pinch it back or make it smaller by pruning it. All right, so let's start planting. I'm going to space these out a little bit so that I can start working from the center back. Now, before you start putting things in the soil, it's a good idea to consider whether this container is going to be viewed from all angles, or if one side's going to be up against the wall. And if that's the case, if this side is going to be against the wall, there's no point in putting a whole bunch of short stuff on this side. We'll put most of the glory towards the front. So, take him out of the pot. And you can see here how it doesn't have a lot of roots yet. It's a fairly young plant. So we're going to kind of just give him a little squeeze, loosen those roots up a little bit. Don't be too rough with them. And I'm going to take also off a little bit of the soil around the top edge. Just gently give him a little massage. And I'm going to place it towards sort of the center back a little bit. And again, this soil is really, really dry, but that's on purpose because we don't want to have to move the container when it weighs 4 times as much as it does now. So I'm putting a plant in there, and as you can see, I'm kind of making sure that the level of the root ball is in line with the level of the soil in the container. You don't want to bury them too deeply. All right, that was number 1. And then we're going to take this begonia. This is actually one of my favorite annuals. And again, the same thing. I'm going to break off a little bit of the soil around the top and give the bottom a little squeeze. Even plants like a little foot massage. And this is going to be another one of the taller plants. So we're going to call these the thrillers. The ones that are going to be sort of intermediate height are going to be fillers, and then we'll have some spillers around the edge. That is a really great way to remember when you go to plant where to place the things that are depending on what size they're going to be. So this is the little lady purse, or the calceolaria. She doesn't really want to come out of her pot. There we go. So here we have a lot more root mass, as you can see. This plant is maybe a little bit of a faster grower, or else it's an older plant. So we're going to squeeze her a little bit. Give the roots a little jiggle. There. And the reason we do this is because if you have a lot of roots going around in a tight circle, and then you plant this plant into a bigger container, the roots will keep going in that circle. So sometimes you feel like you're in a rut. Maybe that's the issue. Maybe you need a little foot massage, and you know, you need to be able to spread yourself out a little bit more. So there's the calceolaria ready to go in. She goes in a little bit to the side here, like so. Again, making sure that the root level, the level of the root clump is sort of in line with the rest of the soil. So when these get bigger, the coleus is going to be about that tall, maybe even a little bit taller. This guy here is going to fill out and also be quite large, and so will the begonia. So what we planted here, it's not very tall now, but it's going to be 2 or maybe even 2.5 or 3 times as big as it is now. And that is something to consider when you think of the spacing of things in these containers. So moving right along, we've got the orange impatiens here. The cards will show you the color that these are going to be. And I want to divide these up. There's 2. I'm going to take them both out of their pots, like that. I always keep these cards. I used to, when I was done with the container, take a nice little rubber band, bundle the cards up and stick them in a kitchen drawer where soon they'll be forgotten, and you won't find them next year when you might want to go and replant this pot. So now what I do instead is I save all the cards, and at the end of the planting I'm going to just stick them into the soil by the edge, so they're actually inside the container. And that way, come next spring or even the fall, if I take this apart in the fall, I'll know exactly what was in there. And I can make sure that I keep the cards of the plants that I really liked for next year. Otherwise, you'll never remember. So here are our orange impatiens, and I think I'm going to put one over to the side here. And because we have an orange plant here now, I think I'm going to put the other orange impatient sort of in the center here. There. And then we have this begonia. Now you can see how these two look very, very different. And this is a non-stop begonia. It tends to be more of a compact variety. They're a little bit sensitive to sunshine, so you want to make sure that you don't put these in a hot location. And they're also known as tuberous begonias because if they get to be old enough, the root becomes a big tuber that you can save from year to year and replant. And these can be quite impressive plants. And this little girl, she's not going to get as tall. So she is someone that I'm going to put towards the front of the planter. And I'm sort of thinking in terms of balance here, so that shorter things go to the front, taller things go to the back. Colors are sort of represented equally, sort of on both sides. And truly, if you want to do things differently, if you don't really like things to be very symmetrical, that is perfectly fine too. You should plant things in a way that you find pleasing and exciting. So I'm just going to grab the other begonia. And you can see this girl is a little bit more orange. but it's such a bright, vivid, almost neon-like color. There. Tuck her in there. And then this little hippo rose that's so little now and it's going to be quite a lot bigger. I'm going to pop these in, one sort of over here. So this is going to come up higher than the impatient. So if she's going to be up to 2 feet tall, she's going to come up to here. So it'll be a nice backdrop for the shorter guys. And I'm going to take this one and she's going to go on the side here. And if you don't want these kinds of things to get quite as tall, you can snip their little heads off. And the best way to do that, to top them, if you can look closely here, I will pinch out the top like that. And what's going to happen in here now is that you're going to have, where I pinched it, it's going to branch, and you're going to have 2 branches, and they're going to come up like that. And when they get tall enough, you pinch those tops off and they're going to branch again. So that way you can create a shorter and more compact plant. And then you can do a different job and fill a different spot. So we're going to tuck that in here. So now the center one's going to be a little shorter because I pinched her, and these guys are going to be a little bit taller. That's going to look really pretty. And here we have a Lismachia, or a creeping jenny. And this is, in our area, a hardy perennial. And in a mild winter, it's evergreen. So if this gets planted in your garden, if you live on the west coast in Canada, then this could be something that can be a very good ground cover for you. So again, I'm giving her a little bit of a root massage. And I'm going to pop that in the very front here. And I'm going to take care to put some of the stems towards the edge of the pot. And I'm actually planting this a little bit sideways, so it's tilting forward. And then you can just kind of even this soil out a little bit. There. And then almost last, but certainly not least, we have the Torrenia. That's going to have a sort of pinky, purpley, lilac-y kind of color flower. And I'm going to put these over on the very sides here. And again, I'm going to kind of tilt them forward a little bit to show them the direction in which they're supposed to grow. Isn't it wonderful to hear the birds sing? It really feels like spring tonight. And going for that symmetry again. There. And then, as you can see, there's still a lot of soil showing in this pot. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take a 6-pack. So this is often how you buy bedding plants. You can see how there's 6 little cells in here. And we're going to take out that little card. And we're going to give this a little squeeze so that we can get all of these out. Like so. So you get 6 plants in one package, which is very handy whether you're planting a border or doing planters or whatever you're doing. If you wanted to put all of these into one single big pot, you can also do that. So now I'm just going to pop these in, sort of in between everything else. And some of you now might wonder what I'm thinking, putting pinks and oranges together, but I think together with this chartreuse green, it's a really vivid color combination, and very fresh and summery and kind of happy. So Don't be afraid to mix colors. If you find them appealing and pretty, then I say go for it. We'll put that in here. And one more. Where will we put her? Maybe we'll put her sort of up here. No, we'll put her back here. That's what we'll do. There. There you have it. So now I'm going to take all of these little cards. Of course, some of them we have multiples of. So I'm only going to keep one of each of the ones we're going to keep. Put those aside. And I just take these and I stick them down into the back. And then I would also really urge you to, once you've finished planting something, take a photograph of it. And then in another month or two, take another photograph. And then also at the end of summer. And what you're going to find is that some plants will be wonderful, they'll produce and they'll perform and they'll look amazing. And other plants might leave a little bit to be desired. So next year, your planter will be even better than this year. And that's it. That's all for today. Thank you so very much for joining me for a day in the garden. I'm Christina Linder, and have a wonderful day.